Dan Cutts, sports journalist, big Gooner from The Sun, joins us as promised. Cutsy, absolutely delightful to have you on with us on the show. I was just saying to Jonesy how me and you went to the game last season together at the Emirates, and it was quite the unbearable experience. I mean, the whole evening was lovely because you're a wonderful person, but it was the unbearable experience as have you dancing up and down next to me in the seats, paying no heed whatsoever to the fact that I was gutted by West Ham being robbed in front of my eyes. And then just saying how I've been badgering you for a couple of months to sort out the tickets for this game. What's going on? And as soon as you replied the other day and said that you may have done so, I thought, well, what have I done that for? Why am I doing that? I'm wasting my Boxing Day. Going to the Emirates. How are you, mate? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming back on the show again. Feeling good about the Gooners, yes or no?
Thanks for having me, chaps. It was great last year, wasn't it? If you weren't a West Ham fan. It was an enjoyable day. Enjoyable Christmas day. I'm all right, mate. I'm good. Looking forward to the Premier League coming back. Could have done with a longer break, as we all probably could after a World Cup. It's to go from the highs of the final to a freezing cold Emirates on Monday is going to be a bit of a contrast. But looking forward to watching them and excited to see how we get going again, to be honest with you, after obviously the first 4 months of the season, incredible start. And then, as only Arsenal could, getting one of our most important players injured during the World Cup after playing about 10 minutes of football. But we'll see how we cope without him, without Jesus. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to get back, to be honest with you.
You mentioned the Gabriel Jesus thing there, Cutsy. Is it Mikel Arteta came out the other day and said he has every confidence in Eddie Nketiah's ability to fill the void, which I've only just stopped laughing about, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have his optimism, but we'll see.
Right. But Jonesy did make quite a prudent point just now and suggested that actually I'd still back Arsenal's second string attack against West Ham's second string defence with a couple of injury woes of our own. How are you sort of feeling ahead of the game generally, or is it just hard to tell because of the World Cup? You don't know what form every team's going to go into it in.
Well, I imagine you've had much the same conversation about literally not knowing what West Ham are going to turn up.
To be honest, Cutsy, we tried not to talk about West Ham. We've been on for 42 minutes. We've just spoken about everything else in our lives.
That bad, is it, chaps? That bad. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's the not knowing. That's kind of the enjoyment of it as well. And not knowing, obviously, Saka and Martinelli and those players haven't had much game time since going away and coming back from the World Cup. Saka's not going to have any game time between then. And a few training sessions in between. Same with Martinelli. Our whole frontline attack hasn't played. If you take Jesus out of it, wouldn't have played for a couple of weeks after leaving the World Cup. But it's kind of the unknown for us, really. If they get going like they would playing before the World Cup, then we'll be absolutely fine. Because Saka, even I thought he was sensational during the World Cup. I thought he was probably England's best player outside of Bellingham. And Martinelli didn't really have much game time, so I don't really know where he's going to be at with his fitness. The Nketiah situation, as we said, I don't have the same hope as Arteta does. I don't know if you caught. We had a friendly on over the weekend against Juventus, which we lost 2-0 from 2 own goals at home, and played really well in that game. And Nketiah had a few chances in that and didn't look. He looked sharp, but he didn't look. He's never been that goal threat that we crave, really. So I think January, a striker, my personal opinion would be a striker would be priority as a backup for him. But when you've given Nketiah a new long-term contract and a lot of money, you kind of have to back him. You kind of have to go all in on him, to be honest with you, because he's like I say, he's on huge wages now. It's going to be interesting 3 months to see if he can this is sort of make or break for him, Arsenal. To be honest with you, I feel like if he can't fill the void of Jesus now, he's never gonna really be a frontline Arsenal striker.
Dan, I was saying to Will before you came on that it feels like both of these clubs are going into this game with very different views. Obviously, the World Cup came at probably arguably the best time for us because we were in such poor form and just needed a break from everything. Whereas it probably came at the wrong time for you, in that you were top of the league, not many injury worries. Would you agree with that? Like, because Will kind of like, he didn't say anything, but he kind of looked at me as if like, you're talking rubbish, mate. He turned his nose up a little bit when I said it. But surely that adds to the question marks over whether Arsenal can go on and actually win the title this year, because certainly one of the favourites given the early form at the beginning of the season. If you don't go on and win it, there's your excuse, isn't it? It's the World Cup.
Yeah, I like every Arsenal fan, I think, was looking forward to the World Cup, but also thought, oh God, why of all the seasons that we have a window World Cup in between, this is the season in the last 20 years wwhere we actually look quite decent and we look like we can compete for the title. It was the most Arsenal thing to ever happen, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, I agree with you. We didn't want it. No Arsenal fan wanted it to come. We were absolutely. We've been flying all season. We've been brilliant, and City just started to slip, didn't they? They had that Brentford loss towards the end, and they didn't look like the force they had done over the previous few months before that, because it looked like we were both going to run away with it. And now I come back, and all the murmurings out of City is that they're absolutely firing. They've been training unbelievably. Haaland's fit again. Like all of the things that you don't want to come out of City, it all looks like it's a happy camp up there. And all of and that's not to say that Arsenal's not. It's just obviously it's a bit of a downer after Jesus' injury. I know he wasn't getting the goals. I mean, that's always been thrown at him.
That, yeah.
But yeah, like
before the World Cup.
Honestly, like if you watch our games, though, Will, he is so important to the way we play. It's unbelievable. He does everything you want in a striker. I think he's only got maybe 5 or 6 goals in the league this year, but everything that we do positively comes through him. All of the attacking and to be honest with you, defensive, like just the pressure he puts on the other team. That you'd see him making tackles at left back. Like the amount of work rate he gets through, and you can't replace that. And that's a huge worry, because Nketiah he's a focal point. He'll sit up front and not do the things that Jesus does. And yeah, I mean, like you say, I was hoping the World Cup wasn't going to come around, but it's come around now, and it's just about whether we can match where we were.
Well, look, Katsy, I mean, it's easy for people to smirk and grin from ear to ear when the words Arsenal and title contenders are used in the same sentence. And by
you're going to put this on me, aren't you? I know where this is going exactly.
Yeah, and when I say it's easy for people to smirk, I mean it's easy for me to smirk when people do that, because it's just still the prospect of Arsenal genuinely being title contenders is still a funny one to me. We're just coming up to midway through, 14 games played, level with City on games played, and then Newcastle in third and Tottenham in fourth have both played a game more than Arsenal. You're 5 points clear of Manchester City after the same amount of games played, like I mentioned. 7 points clear of Newcastle in third, and 8 clear of Tottenham in fourth. I appreciate with the World Cup, and we don't know yet what factor that's going to, or what impact that's going to have on the Premier League and each team, etc., etc. Is it one of those where you go, okay, look, I think we're top 4 this season, to be fair, and I think we've probably finished above Tottenham? Or do you go, no, we're 5 points clear at the top, we're nearly halfway through the season? Well, yes, nearly halfway. You've got 5 games till we're at the halfway mark.
Yeah.
There is an enormously long way to go. Is it a realistic? Are you laughing as much as everyone else? Again, me, when it suggested Arsenal were in the title race?
Who's played better than us, Will, this season? Honestly, I
God, he
for the
thinks
first...
he thinks they're going to win it, James, doesn't he? He's already planned the title. Like, you can
Do you
hear
know
it in
what?
his voice.
I was much like everyone else. Don't worry, I was the same, smirking, winding people, doing it to wind people up, saying it after 5 games or whatever, just to wind people up. But the closer you got to Christmas, and the more I watched us play, I was like, and there would be games where we didn't play well, or we just got through it, and we played Leeds away a couple of games before the end, and they absolutely battered us in the second half, and we came away with a 1-0 win. And after that, I thought, that's the type of game that in years gone by, where teams that are successful look at those games and think, it's not always going to be the free flowing football. City have had games like that when they've had title winning teams over the years, where they just grind out a result. And we had a good mix towards the end of grinding out results and playing really nice football. So I don't see why not. I really don't. I think Jesus is a huge loss to us. But what's the point watching football if you're not going to dare to dream about winning the Premier League, especially with 5 points clear at Christmas? I think the stat is that only one time in the last, I don't know what it was, 15 years or something, as a team at Christmas not won the league. I mean, it would just be Arsenal, Arsenal to be the second team in that stat. But I don't see why not. I really don't.
But to be fair, that Christmas point is normally after 20 games or whatever, isn't it? To be fair,
yeah.
Like, it is, rather than we're effectively, I know months wise, calendar wise, we're halfway through the season, but technically we're a little over a third, aren't we? But I do see what you mean. I'm absolutely delighted to hear that, Cutsy. I'm glad there's video evidence of it.
It's going to
come back
and bite me, isn't
it?
So
of course it is. I reckon about February, when it's guaranteed that you can't win the Premier League anymore.
I'll be making sure you delete this podcast at the end of the season off the internet, so it never comes back to see the light of day.
Go on, James.
Yeah, but let's look ahead to Boxing Day then. Obviously, we've had, I don't know how many friendlies Arsenal have had. I think we had 3 or 4 unbeaten, which obviously means absolutely nothing. But how have Arsenal been in their sort of mini season, pre-season, in the middle of a season? And do you think that you can read much into that going into Sunday? Because you said right at the beginning that you don't really know what West Ham and what Arsenal are going to turn up. So it's difficult to really make any real predictions on form or anything like that.
We've had 3 games and played well in all of them. We won the 2. We went to Dubai for a sort of, like you say, the mid-season warm weather training, and had 2 games out there and won both, and played pretty well in both of them. Looked quite sharp.
Did you play,
obviously.
Cuts? We
played AC Milan and who was the first game against? I can't remember our first game now. I'll remember it in a second. Yeah. And then obviously came back and had our first game at home against Juventus on the weekend. And lost 2-0 actually. It was Lyon. It was Lyon. It was Lyon. Yeah, it was Lyon and AC Milan. And ended up winning.
Did they both go to penalties?
Yeah, that was part of that every game went to that in that trophy. It was weird.
You won 3-0 and then won 2-1 on penalties, and you beat AC Milan 2-1 and then won 4-3 on penalties.
Exactly, and won the Dubai Super Cup. So that was the start of the start of the quadruple season. But yeah, it was good. It was actually quite a decent sort of. Arteta said during it actually that it went really well, and despite not having a lot of the World Cup players back in that, players like Granit Xhaka went literally straight from the World Cup knockout stages with Switzerland to straight into training, and I think he was really. I think that sort of showed where the club is at. Players like Saka as well only had a couple of days off and then went straight back into training. The mentality he's got those players like under at the minute is incredible. Like they are all in with him, and it's brilliant. So yeah, we had those 2 games and played well, and then we came back on the weekend and lost 2-0, 2 own goals, as I say, but actually played really well. Like I think we had like 19 shots or something, and they had 2 or 3 shots with 1 on target, and we lost 2-0. It was one of those type of games, but looked pretty sharp. And then, but going into Boxing Day, it's totally different. Like you say, altogether, it's no one knows what West Ham is going to. Well, you've probably got quite a good notion of what West Ham is.
Yeah, I can tell you.
And I hope the West Ham that you two fear turns up. But I'm kind of confident that he'll have them go in the same. Like he won't let standards slip. Like that's not something that he will allow. And I'm kind of think we'll hit the ground running quite quickly again. I hope so anyway.
So, well, how do you see it playing out style-wise then, Cutsy? Because, team news or sort of how you're going to line up, how's the game going to play out? I think David Moyes, from a West Ham perspective, will be, quite happy, as he always is, to go and play pragmatically. I mean, we all know what his record is away from home. At top 6 sides, atrocious is what it is. Yeah. I think 1 point from a possible 96 or something. And that normally sounds like one of the Will Pugh exaggerations I do, but I think that actually is basically the record. So how do you see it from a style perspective, and how do you expect Arsenal to line up?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you guys will know a bit more than me. I haven't looked too far into West Ham, but I assume you'll have all of your World Cup players back. Rice will be back and things like that from what you can gather.
Yeah, Deckers will play. He certainly went and watched us the other day, so that basically means he's ready to go.
It's only question marks over Aguero, isn't there, because of his injury? But other than that,
and big Alphonse Areola, but he'd only be on the bench anyway. Just sobbing over his World Cup runners up middle. Yeah.
So yeah, you won't be apart. You've obviously got a lot of injuries and long-term injuries and whatnot, and had the defender Agard or whatever his name is injured as well. But it's going to be very much, I imagine, similar to last season. I can see very much Arsenal on the front foot throughout, and you trying to dig in, and similar to what you did at Liverpool recently. Was it? I remember that game where you actually only started playing in the second half. It seemed like in that game, but actually played quite well. So yeah, exactly that. And if you cut it, I don't, you to watch obviously way more West Ham than I do, but that just seemed like typical West Ham for me. If you come out actually with that attitude early on, you might, like, his record wouldn't be as shocking, because you might go and nick a few games away against these top 6 sides, because it looks like you can compete there. It's just a mentality thing with West Ham, and I think mentally we'll have the game won. I do actually think we'll have the game won before we even kick a ball, just because that is the way it is. Like, West Ham will come with quite a negative attitude. We'll have quite a majority of the ball throughout the game, and I actually see quite a relatively comfortable win in the end. But again, if that isn't the case, please do delete this podcast off the internet.
Yeah, I mean, the Dan Cut says Arsenal will romp to victory over Hammers before lifting Premier League title in record early time.
Every time I've come on here before, the podcast before, I've always predicted either a draw or an Arsenal loss. Because I haven't got it in my heart to ever say Arsenal wins. I know what they're like, but actually this was in seasons gone by when we've been absolutely pretty rubbish. So I'm hopeful.
And then have gone on to beaten us.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm hoping this may have the opposite effect. Hello? Well, I'm not really sure what happened there. Jonesy and Cutsy, I don't know if you can still hear me, have ducked out of the StreamYard. James Jones has logged back in already, as has Cutsy. Absolutely no idea what happened there, lads.
Sorry, apologies.
Did we all get kicked out there, did we?
It was just me. I was just left in on my own.
Apologies. I got kicked out.
The professional podcaster that I am, I've seamlessly carried on the monologue, so the listeners won't be with a big gap of silence. So I think, Katsi, you were just in the middle of explaining, or I was in the middle of hoping, actually, that in years gone by when you've come on the pod and predicted a West Ham victory or an Arsenal draw, Arsenal then gone on to romp home 3-0. So this time round, fingers crossed. There'll be you've predicted a win and West Ham will win at the Emirates. I just can't see it. Jonesy, I can't see Moisey changing. Can you? I think it's going to be. I think Moisey just looks at games away at the Big Six, and he looks at them as goal difference preserving exercises, genuinely. And I just think he thinks if he comes away from City, Anfield, Old Trafford, Chelsea, Arsenal, and maybe not Spurs, but certainly the other big teams, not Spurs. He looks at those and thinks, if I come away with less than a 2-0 or 2-0 defeat or less, then that's all right, because he's always, even at Everton when he was really good, and for us, his success is built on beating the teams that you're supposed to be around in the league. Do you know what I mean? We haven't really been like walloped, have we, Jonesy, since Moisey's been in charge against a big team. We used to get we'd be on the end of a 4 or 5 every now and then. Man City have given us a couple of hidings, haven't they? But we haven't really been on the end of any brutal defeats. And I think that's
probably why he keeps doing it. That's probably why he keeps doing it. He's thinking, well, I've not been battered by this team since I came back. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And hopefully I might make a point, or, as you say, not lose 5 or 6-0 instead. But I think it's going to be the same setup. I can't see him changing. He's had 6 weeks to work it out and to try and change form. And I think everyone knows deep down that he's going to go in. It's going to be sit back for 75 minutes. If we're only 1-0 down by then, we'll attack for the last 15 and hope for the best. And that's what we did at Anfield. That's what we did at Old Trafford.
Well, you boys will probably talk about this in further detail and have done recently. Are you surprised that they didn't? I think
you're overestimating the quality of our podcast. Quite honestly.
Are you lot surprised that they didn't make a change in the break?
I'm not surprised they didn't. They were just never going to do it. He's got too much credit in the bank with them. And I think after they backed him with 170 million quid in the summer, it would have been too much of a risk, I think, to have sacked him and then risk a manager coming in and then not wanting that 170 million quid's worth of players. And then it requires another rebuild so soon after the investment. They'll stick with him for the season. Unless it's like getting unless it gets really bad, they'll stick with him and then we'll go again next year. They'll give him more money next summer.
But we're not going to slip into the relegation zone. I know we look close to it now, but we genuinely are too good for that. Moisey's
we were in 2003, mate.
No, but we weren't, were we? That's
save
different.
Save the podcast. Wait a minute. We're too good to go down. This is definitely going to bite him again.
Goodness sake. When Arsenal win the league and West Ham go down, that would be the end for me. No, but I just think Moisey's too pragmatic, to be honest, to go down. And we've got to, mate, we can't have a player who starts for Brazil in centre midfield and England's starting centre midfielder. We can't have those two players and go down.
Would be very West Ham if you did, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That is very true. Listen, Katsi, it's been brilliant having you on.
Thanks,
mate. We'll just do a quick round of score predictions. First of all, Katsi, I hate to do this in such a public forum. Are we going to the game or not?
I think we are. I just need to speak
to news.
I need to speak to someone today, but I will speak to you outside of the podcast and give you.
That feels like more appropriate, to be honest. Yeah.
Especially when I let you down with an hour to go, saying actually, maybe I haven't got a ticket at all.
Quite honestly,
go with my old man.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'd be absolutely delighted. I think. Right, let's do score predictions then. Cuts. I'll hear from you first. West Ham Arsenal at the Emirates on Boxing Day, 8 p.m. kickoff.
3 or 4-1 Arsenal.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
I said. I think
hurt.
that. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
That cut deep. That one.
Yeah, I don't know. I know. I said it too confidently as well, didn't I? That is.
Maybe you'll feel better when I also predict 3 or 4-1 to Arsenal.
Yeah, I think I've got to stop having a pint at lunchtime, haven't I? And coming onto the podcast. It is Christmas after all. But yeah, I just think we'll be a bit too. I think we'll hit the ground running again. I really do, and if West Ham come with the same attitude they have at the top 6 teams over the last few years, from what I've seen of them, we'll have far too much of them for them. And I think we'll win 3 or 4-1.
Jonesy?
Heart says we'll nick a point, 1-1. Head says we'll probably lose 3 or 4-1.
You know what? Let's make it. I don't think this has happened on the podcast before, that we have a clean sweep of the exact same score prediction. So I'm also going to think that West Ham are going to lose 3 or 4-1 at the Emirates on Boxing Day. Dan Cutts, sports editor for The Sun. Huge Gooner. Thanks so much for joining us, mate. We appreciate you coming on the show. Again, do let me know if we're going to the game. If we're not, that's totally okay. If it's not, happy Christmas to me is all I can say about
exactly.
that.
Chaps, thanks for having me. Have a lovely Christmas.
You too, mate.
Stay with us, me and Jones. You all have some final thoughts next.